The Pacers won game 2. They're up 2-0, but it wasn't always pretty in that one. They need to find ways to get Pascal Siakam going. Have they solved the Cavs defense? And what else needs to be better for the Pacers going forward in the series? We'll get to all of it today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, looking at game 2 and a little bit of game 1, and bridging that into game 3, the series shifting to Indy on Friday. Game 2 was amazing for the Pacers, another epic game with many moments to be celebrated and discussed, which we did on yesterday's podcast. They did win the game. That obviously leads to a rosy tone, but look, they had to come back 7 down in the final 40 seconds for a reason. There was a lot of stuff that needs to get into more detail for the Pacers. Where can they be better? Is there anything they need to change? How can they get Siakam going? There's just a lot that I need to unload from the notebook from that game and really dig into, because a lot of it was masked for good reason. The Pacers were incredible in the final minute of that game. Something fascinating to me to start the game, that was something I wondered before the series, was in game 1, the Cavs came out and switched a lot. And they are switching defense by design. That's what they like to do. That's how Pascal Siakam had his monster half against the Cavs in the regular season, which I've talked about, and we'll talk about it again today. Okay, that's normal. Jared Allen got beat a few too many times off the bounce. The Pacers got, they just scored very easily a lot in game 1. And in game 2, the Cavs changed up their defense, as they should. They gave them 121 very easy points to the Pacers in game 1. And they were still, largely doing a Cavs-y scheme. They had different personnel available. No Evan Mobley, right? Obviously, this changes what they're capable of doing. Although Dean Wade's a very good defender, they weren't switching everything. Right? They kept some guards on guards in those actions instead of trying to get a big, switched on to guards. They were willing to drop a little deeper on some of these screens, right? Just have guys stay home as much as possible and force the Pacers to beat them in different ways. That's fine. That's a natural adjustment that I thought made a lot of sense, right? They weren't just giving up the switches. They weren't just willing to let a guard cook a matchup in the way that happened in game 1. Now, it is very easy and smart, prescient in many ways to say, hey, the Pacers scored 35, 36, 34 points across the last 3 quarters. Who cares? They scored 105 points in a 3-quarter stretch. Like, they clearly have something figured out against the Cavs defense. That's true. They also had that disaster first quarter where they scored 15 points to open the game, and the Cavs had a 28-4 run, and it looked like for a second, do the Cavs have something here? It was 32-15 after the first quarter. The Pacers were 1 for 8 from deep. They were 4 for 8 on twos. They had 9 turnovers. So I will let you, and I will agree with you, say that the Pacers just had a bad quarter. They turned it over a lot. They didn't make shots that they've made throughout the series in the postseason. That was a fluke. And that's somewhat true, but I think some of those errors in that span were forced by Cleveland, right? They did change up their defense just enough, and you could see the Pacers having a hard time getting better shots in that quarter. Nembhard took 2 threes in that quarter. I'll double check the box score as I keep talking. I'm just reading off my notes. Yes, that's correct. Andrew Nembhard took 2 threes in that quarter. Both of them were deep in the shot clock, shots that he had to take on the catch because the Pacers likely weren't going to get a better shot at that moment. Myles Turner got completely swarmed attacking the basket at one point by several Cavs defenders clamping down on him. He couldn't shoot or get a pass off. That, I believe, was his turnover for the quarter, right? That made me think, oh, man, they're locked into something. They found a way to pressure the Pacers in a way that has them rattled slightly. You can ignore the start of the game, but because the Pacers covered for it, right? They figured something out and kept scoring. But being down 20 was in large part because the Cavs defense was so much better, and the Pacers weren't scoring at the levels that they normally were. And then the Cavs got it to 20 again in the second half. Clearly that start mattered. Had the Pacers lost this game, I think a lot of people would be saying, oh, they need to start the game better, which requires them being better against this Cavs defense, which at one point in this game, believe it or not, in the game, the Pacers scored 120 points in regulation. I just put in my notes and described it as suffocating. It did not finish the game that way. It did not last that way. But Donovan Mitchell noted that the Cavs can take stuff from that first quarter and get going. And I think it's simple how this goes for the Pacers. One, they have to keep what they were doing for the last 3 quarters up. And two, it's just stuff that they know is possible. But skip passes are a big thing when defenses like to overload without switching, and continuing to play through the guy with the mismatch while still playing your style. We saw that get going in game 2. Tyrese Halliburton just weaving around Jared Allen all the time. Andrew Nembhard taking the ball up the floor so they can get him into the paint for penetration all the time. Right? They clearly identified that if they have a good matchup, that's the way they should start these plays, because they can initiate better, more effectively that way when they are able to break down the defense early in the possession in a way that they really weren't with Siakam and Haliburton at times early in this game, and it really lulled them into those Cavs switching things. So that is something I'm keeping an eye on going forward. How do the Cavs keep defending? Is it the way they did to start game 2? And how much can the Pacers continue to break it? Or are they going to have trouble if Mobley's back and they're using that style, or if they make any other changes to their lineup? But look, the Pacers have figured out everything thrown at them this postseason. They had one awful half against the Bucks. Everything else has been largely solid enough for them. So that was something early in the game that I thought was extremely noteworthy for the Pacers in this one. Also early in this game, Cavs rim pressure second quarter was just spectacular. You want to look at their shot chart, in that second quarter, you'll see a nightmare defensive quarter for the Pacers, who talked about wanting to defend better at the basket after game 1. A ton of made shots right at the rim for the Cavs. They just kept getting there. They didn't miss inside the restricted area in the second quarter as their lead reached 20 and then was double digits by halftime. And this is a running problem for the Pacers in this series. In that quarter, the Cavs went 6 for 9 on twos and had 5 free throw attempts. Their leading scorers obviously were Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus, who both had big quarters. Max Strus with threes created by drives. Jared Allen played well. They were playing well on the offensive end. And the Pacers have got to figure out something with this rim defense. The Cavs have an awesome offense. They led the regular season in offensive rating. They've still scored decently well in this series. They were awesome at scoring in the first series. And they just have not made shots at all. They're 28.2% from 3 in game 2 is better than their game 1 percentage, right? There's a chance those shots start to fall, but they've been so good at the rim that despite having these off shooting games, they've been able to keep up. Like, yeah, the game 1, the final score looks like a comfortable Pacers win. Like, it was tight in the fourth quarter. The Cavs were winning. The Cavs were up 20 in game 2. I don't have to explain to you the margins of the series if you've watched games, but like, there are a lot of ways the Pacers need to get better. And the fact that the Cavs are shooting this poorly and keeping up does kind of prove, man, the Pacers have to get better on the defensive end and really walling off the paint in some way. Easier said than done. The next team that figured out how to completely shut down Donovan Mitchell will be the first. 21 free throw attempts for him. 8 for Jared Allen. That's 29 from 2 guys. The Pacers had 29 as a team. Those 2 were awesome, and they can make, Mitchell's got the wiggle. Jerome can get to his little floater, although he was terrible at it. In game 2, Strus took 6-2 somehow. Like, they have guys who can get going inside the arc. It's all possible because of Mitchell, who the Pacers have just not had an answer for in this series so far. Game 2's final number, when it comes to points in the paint for the Cavs, was 56. That doesn't sound that daunting, and I agree that in some ways the Pacers are better defending the basket, but they took 35 free throws, and a lot of them were from Mitchell and Allen, and those 2 guys were shooting around the basket when those fouls occurred. Those aren't points in the paint for the box score, but those are points in the paint in terms of points were scored because of paint pressure, right? So even though the number went down as the free throws went up, they kind of offset. Look, the Pacers have to figure out something to stop the Cavs from getting to the rim and scoring as much as they have been. It's very hard to do. No one has. That's why their offense is so good. But I have been, I think, and the Pacers are concerned about the points in the paint numbers they've allowed to open the series. They mentioned it after game 1, a win. They didn't really talk about it after game 2 because it was crazy and they had a lot of other stuff to talk about. But they need to figure out a way to cut off the rim. If that requires them sacrificing some ability to defend shooters, it might not be worth it. I think part of the way they've been able to break up the Cavs' rhythm with their closeouts and their defense on shooters has been exactly that, making shooters' life harder, making them skittish, whatever you want to say. But it might be worth tipping that balance just a bit back towards more rim defense. If it means that they can get enough stops to, break a game away, or if they're giving up a few more threes, maybe that they're willing to take that given the volume that the Cavs have gotten in the paint so far this series. Early in the game, when the Cavs are up 20, those were the 2 things that alarmed me the most if I'm the Pacers, is the complete inability to stop the Cavs at the rim and the Cavs changing their defensive scheme with some success. Throughout the game, a game the Pacers won, by the way, they figured out a lot of this stuff. They got better on defense. They were better at getting into the paint themselves. They solved that Cavs defense. They played better throughout the game, but the start was so bad that it makes me wonder, like, man, if the Cavs could extend that for just 5 to 10 more minutes, they'd feel very good about their game. But that is where I'm starting to film for the Pacers, is the bad quarter. How can they solve those things? Can Pascal Siakam get going? What rotational changes need to make? Small ball is here, and Pacers Cavs, what? So much more to get to today on Locked On Pacers. Before we talk about anything else, got to talk about two great groups of people. First up, Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. When you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. You can find the right talent with a marketing campaign, and Upwork can help connect you with freelance experts who deliver incredible results. It's free and simple with Upwork. Within a day, multiple qualified candidates to choose from, and you can find affordable top-tier freelancers. Visit Upwork.com. Post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect top-tier talent and grow your business today. We also need to talk about the lovely, lovely people over at Game Time. The best way to get tickets, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Pacers have had a million awesome ones this year. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. Their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Beyond those savings, which can be used for concerts, comedy, theater, all-in, anything, the all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Some of my friends who were over today just bought tickets to Game 4 using Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Cavs. Danny Cunningham with his perspective on what's going on for the Cavs. People do not seem to like him in the Locked On Pacers listener base. Whew, I think Danny does a really good job covering that Cavs team, but I get it. They're very good. They were talked about as a really good team before the series, and they haven't played like it yet. Let's continue talking about this series. Pacers are up 2-0. They found a lot of answers. Something fascinating that happened in Game 2 that I did not expect to happen at all this series. And granted, it happened mostly as a result of an injury. Small ball in Pacers Cavs, huh? I get it. No Mobley, but going to Wade and Javonte Green lineups was not something that I expected in the series. Pacers instant counter. Rick Carlisle all over it. Immediately goes to Toppin Siakam. Walker gets in there a little bit right after that for Toppin. He was with Siakam. Very rare in this playoffs and really all season that Jarris has played with Siakam as the only front court players. Right, a lot of times throughout the series, Walker has been spelling Siakam or vice versa. And so that was really interesting to me as a wrinkle is, will the Cavs go small ball at all beyond this game? I mean, probably not. All right. But, Dean Wade at center is not something I think the Cavs will do if Evan Mobley is available. But it really worked for the Pacers to up the tempo. I think they were thrilled that they had a chance to go small, which is why they subbed into it so quick when they recognized what the Cavs are doing. So keep an eye on that if Mobley stays out for any amount of time going forward, as the Pacers have certainly immediately figured out how they want to play against the Cavs when they adjust out of their usual size and lineups. Thomas Bryant's rotation changed. Jarris played a little, and then they went away from him. It was all different, and I don't think he played in the second half. He did a little bit. So that was extremely noteworthy. I don't know if the Cavs will do that again if they get Mobley back, but if they do, the Pacers are super, super ready for it. Speaking of some four men, since we were just talking about Mobley, let's talk about Pascal Siakam. Really goofy series for him. I don't even know if he's necessarily been bad. Not bad. That's obviously a stretch for any star player. He was just 5 for 8 with 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 turnovers. Like, he played well in Game 2 in the chances he had. He hit a huge layup late in the game. 5 for 8 in the first game, 6 for 15, 40% shooting in the first game. He did make threes, 8 boards, 4 assists, only 2 turnovers in that game. Like, his stats are fine. He's playing fine. I think first of all, expected him to be really good in this series for a lot of reasons I talked about today, ironically, but also you can go back and listen to my pre-series presser with Jay Rigdon. I talked about Siakam being an X factor, which is an atypical term used for a star player, but that game the Pacers played against Cleveland in Indy during the regular season when both teams were actually trying, Siakam was amazing in the first half. 21 points, barbecued all these switches, forced the Cavs to change into a zone, and the Cavs ran away with the game. But that half made me go, oh, this is a series where if the Cavs keep switching to the volume that they usually do, and they have, Siakam could have lots of chances. But he hasn't. The Cavs have switched out of a lot of non-advantageous situations with Siakam. He was being guarded by Dean Wade last game. I saw a lot of tweets that said, hey, Dean Wade's on Pascal Siakam. The Pacers probably go to that. Dean Wade is an awesome defender. Dean Wade is a particularly good post defender. It's like all those people who saw James Harden on post players and said, the Pacers need to throw it into the post with James Harden down there. No, that's the only thing James Harden is good at on defense. Dean Wade, meanwhile, is good at a lot of things on defense. That is not a mismatch. Now, Siakam is a better player than Dean Wade by a ton of margins, but that is not the biggest gap in offensive versus defensive talent on the floor for the Pacers, basically at any point against Cleveland. Dean Wade's a good player. So it made a little bit of sense to me that the flow of the offense in the first half of game 2 just didn't really dictate Siakam's involvement, right? He wasn't bad or useless. He was still providing value as a decoy. They won his minutes by 5 at halftime of that game, even though the Pacers were, excuse me, that's the second quarter. I can read. They only lost his minutes by 5 in the first half, despite the rest of the starters being much worse. But he was 2 for 2 at the break with 4 assists, 2 turnovers. They could not get him the ball and rolling. He only had the 2 chances. He did take advantage of them. The Pacers were down 11, and I wondered if they could get him going at all. It never really happened. I was at one point was Googling the fewest combined shot attempts for Siakam and Haliburton in a game this season. That's how little they were involved. Now, the Pacers offense, the way it is so flow heavy, right? We've talked about this a million times, and the matchups don't really rattle them from doing what they want to do, and they don't want to mismatch hunt like they kind of did at the end of game 5 of the Bucks series, unless they know they're getting good baskets out of it. So the flow of the game, if a player is being guarded by a good player, especially a good team defender, sometimes the ball just doesn't find them, right? And in the first half of that game, if Siakam only took 2 shots, that's certainly what happened. The ball just kind of never really found him. You can get on whoever for that. The actual players on the floor, whose job it is to move it around and potentially move it to Pascal Siakam, who's very good. You can blame coaching for saying, hey, guys, get it to Siakam. You can blame Siakam for not finding ways to wiggle free for points. He hit the last field goal of the game, Tyrese Halliburton going crazy. And it was a very significant shot. He's still playing okay in the series. Like, this is a lot of nitpicking, but I thought he'd be more impactful than he has been so far with 29 total points in the series. I wonder if the Pacers can find a way to unlock him going forward, right? He has probably the toughest duo of matchups for anyone in this series. Evan Mobley, amazing. And then Evan Mobley's backup is Dean Wade. Dean Wade's good on defense too. Like, you're not really getting any breather, any sort of extra time to take advantage of anything. Maybe he could be the screener if they're switching a lot and get favorable matchups, but the Cavs switched less in game 2. And that forced Siakam to be in tougher positions than he usually is for an entire game. So credit the Cavs. Their game plan switch was good. Pacers deserve some blame. They've got to figure out how to get Pascal going, I think, a little better than they did. But it's been just very interesting to me the extent that he's been kind of murmured this entire series, because that didn't seem like something that would be the reality to me. He played under 30 minutes in game 2, and they had some bench guys playing a ton, and just a lot. It was just not. He's only started under 30 minutes. Like, it didn't feel like they could get him going in any way. Maybe he's a little banged up for something, but I think that is something that I'm looking at in game 3 and beyond is, can Pascal Siakam find some space? And I wonder if the Cavs switch up their front court matchups. We've seen them put Allen on Turner, obviously, and Mobley on Siakam. But what if they switch that to slid on Myles Turner, or because Siakam's not killing them? That is not something that would shock me going forward. I wonder how he can be better the rest of the series, even with his very, very tough matchups, because the low shot attempts, I mean, the defensive impact's fine, but the low shot attempts, the lack of just like, oh, Siakam's killing these guys that I kind of expected would happen in the series just hasn't been there at all. My expectations be nothing, but I thought they were at least well-founded in some ideas that could be coming. So I'd be interested in how the Pacers can get him going, because he's clearly good enough to put fear in the Cavs and put fear in any team in the postseason. And every team tries to cross-match in the front court, but the Cavs are one of the rare teams that can do it. I think they're comfortable with Jared Allen, but Jared Allen keeps getting cooked off the bounce by lots of guys, and so it's harder to switch with him. Turner sets more screens as a result. I get it. I do get how it gets to the point where it's halftime and Siakam's taking 2 shots, and all these people are asking me about it. And I'm like, I don't know. It didn't feel that weird. It just never happened, right? There's a lot of guys where it feels weird when they're not shooting. Siakam, it didn't feel weird to me. It just felt like how the game was being played, but they do absolutely need to get him more involved, right? He's a star level player who can score. his matchups are hard, but when he's out of them or when the Pacers do something well to generate a chance for him, they really need to get to that. One more break really quick before we talk about the front court rotation shifts. Haliburton being off the ball, the possession battle, so much more from Pacers Cavs. Before we get to any of that, we need to talk about OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. The first person didn't answer. Did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone's the #1 business phone plan built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets people manage businesses and calls and texts, all from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. You can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads, so you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering listeners of Locked On Pacers 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE. Holy cow. OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have an existing number with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. If you want more from me on basketball games, I was on Locked On NBA Game Night Wednesday night with Wes Goldberg talking Celtics Knicks. Shout out to the Knicks. Wow. Thunder Nuggets. Thunder looking like the Thunder again, and Steph Curry's injury. If you're interested in those topics, Locked On NBA Game Night with myself and Wes Goldberg is the next place for you. Some bench questions. I got it at first. I felt like I had a pretty good feel on how the Pacers might try their rotation in the series. I feel pretty good about my predictions. So far, they got to figure out what's going on with Shepard or Bryant, right? They tried Thomas Bryant. The Cavs went smaller. There's some zone stuff. He played less. He played like just over 10 minutes in this game. Ben Shepard can't play if his defense is like this in this series. He has not kept guys in front of him in a way that I think has allowed him to stay on the floor, because his offense has completely become neutralized in the last 2 months since he can't make a three. If he can't guard, and like he's getting beat bad off the bounce a few times in the series, this is probably the worst 2 games of defense I've seen him play for the Pacers. They might just not need to play him, right? Play Mathurin on ball, play Walker if you must, but I don't know if Shepard's been cutting it so far. I thought it'd be a Shepard series. I got to eat the crow on that. Like, it made sense to me logically that the Cavs have lots of ball handlers. He could guard or at least be a pest, be a nuisance, be Ben Shepard. He's good at that stuff. There's a reason they keep turning to him in these moments. The Ben Shepard button, if many of you remember my Carlisle idea, every time a game got different, confusing, harder, whatever, he would just slam the Ben Shepard button, put him in the game. Shepard would stabilize things, and he takes him out. You know, that hasn't happened as much in the postseason. They've still been winning. I don't think he's been awful, but Ben Shepard's been tough. Thomas Bryant's defense has got to figure something out at some point. I'm concerned about the bench front court defense, right? That Thomas Bryant is the center of that group, but him and Toppin have had some trouble defending against the Cavs, which makes sense. The Cavs style is kind of the opposite of what those two's the strengths would be defensively in terms of their mobility and how they're going to switch and all that. But it's really hard when you can't play both Toppin, Bryant together for the Pacers to kind of build out a rotation in the perfect way for them. That makes a lot of sense. So it's just kind of tricky. I thought Bryant would play in the series. I thought Shepard would too. I kind of now think I'd rank Walker above them in my importance as the Pacers, although Walker had some head-scratching moments in Game 2. This is his biggest minutes he's played in his NBA career yet. So I would just consider changing the front court rotation as the Pacers. One of Siakam, Turner, 48 minutes, and then figure it out from there, whether that means Bryant plays 10, Toppin plays 15, whatever. They've got to change it up because they have not gotten enough defensively from those guys to mask anything with those bench groups. Stuff to put a pin in. Tyrese Halliburton off the ball more in this game. Some was that he just was, right? In the first half of this game, Tyrese Halliburton 1 assist, 3 for Nembhard, 4 for Siakam, right? They were moving it well against the Cavs defense with other players. Halliburton involved in that ball movement. He's not like useless as a passer. His assist number is very rarely reflective of the impact that he actually has for the Pacers, which anyone who's watched his team for more than one day knows. Halliburton's a wonderful passer, right? Second half of the game, he has 3 assists. Andrew Nembhard had 10 in the second half. And if you watched it, you saw Nembhard take it across the floor a ton. Some was Isaac Okoro playing good defense on Tyrese Halliburton and not guarding Andrew Nembhard, which meant Nembhard had a better matchup to attack. That makes sense to me. They've done that a lot throughout the years, regular season or playoffs, of If Haliburton is truly being guarded by a stud, like the Lou Dort game that the Thunder won, Nembhard is the guy initiating offense. When he's good at it, like in the second half, the Pacers have a chance to generate good offense in the game. Blah, blah, blah. I'm over talking about this. Haliburton was off the ball more in this game for lots of reasons. The defensive strategy used against him. The other part being his wrist, right? He was clearly holding his wrist in a lot of pain in the second quarter of game 2. Got it wrapped at halftime. I think TNT reported on the broadcast that he got x-rays at halftime. He played the rest of the game, so it's not super significant. He said after when I asked him that it's sore, and then went on to talk about the series becoming more physical. Regardless, that is something to watch in game 3. If he's still off the ball, what extent, how much does it matter for the Pacers if Nembhard's passing that well, or Haliburton can still find ways to score late? Does it matter who's taking it across the court? No. If it does matter who's taking it across the floor, that's the bigger story than who actually is. But I'm curious how much Haliburton considers the balance of his injury and the matchups of this game, what made it make more sense for Nembhard to kind of shoulder more of that load. But it's not just passing. Haliburton had no shots in the second half through the first 7 minutes. And the Cavs went up 20. They needed their stars to help them come back, right? I already mentioned it with Siakam, but the shot total combo number for Haliburton and Siakam was very much trending towards being the lowest of the season. The number is 17 in Portland in February. That was the lowest combined shot attempts from Haliburton and Siakam this year. They were at 17 with 30 seconds to go, and then Siakam had a layup, and Haliburton hit the game winner. But the involvement of those two is just very kind of peculiar to me. Maybe injuries are a part of it, who knows? But I think they need to figure that kind of stuff out. Last thing, the possession battle. The Pacers have to figure this out. I mentioned this one already with Derek. You guys have heard me talk about this with the Pacers many, many a time. They figured it out. They cleaned it up in the game, right? Second half of game 2 of Pacers-Cavs. Pacers had 7 offensive rebounds and 4 turnovers. Cavs had 7 offensive rebounds and 7 turnovers. Pacers won the possession battle that half. Yes, the Cavs took 7 more free throws, but the Pacers took 7 more shot attempts. On aggregate, the Pacers had more possessions in that second half, which was a huge deal because in game 1 they did not. And in the first half of game 2, oh my gosh, 13 turnovers for the Pacers. 5 from Nembhard, 3 from McConnell. Rough. Those two combined for more than the Cavs, who had 6 total. And the Pacers only had 4 offensive rebounds. The Cavs had 7. The Cavs took 12 more shots and fewer free throws in the first half. So they really had 12 extra possessions. That just can't happen. I mean, I've said this, I feel like after every game of the series. They have not made shots yet. Maybe they just don't the whole series and they look like frauds when it's over. But eventually they're going to make shots. The Cavs can't have this many extra chances. And a lot of these turnovers are sloppy, whatever. And Dave rightly said after game 1, hey, a lot of these were dead balls. It's not a big deal. Yeah, that's true. But you're literally not getting a shot up on the possession. They've got to clean up the turnovers and box out a little bit better to keep up in the possession game. A lot of teams have identified that offensive rebounding is a good way to slow down the Pacers. If the crashes are coming, the Pacers have to hit the defensive boards going forward. The possession battle could be the story of the series going forward if the Cavs can find ways to make their shots and keep getting the Pacers turned over. That's everything I have from game 2 to game 3. That is the official end of the Tony East Notebook through all these games. Tomorrow, Justin Rowan from the Chase Down Pod, one of my faves, an OG NBA Twitter grower, will join us to talk about the series. Can the Cavs actually do anything to win it? What's going on right now with all these injuries? How are they playing? I'll, of course, cover the Pacers side, so that'll be really fun. And then Friday itself is Game 3 podcast coming right after. Thank you guys so much for listening today. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony R. East. This podcast is a Twitter account. It's at Locked On Pacers. Same on Instagram. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you very soon.